Joining me now, Pastor Phil Waldrep. Pastor, Merry Christmas, sir.
Well, Merry Christmas to you too, Liz. It's great to be with you again.
It's so good to have you back. Pastor, let's start with the question of the day today. This is about Facebook and their new war on fake news here. And the question is, do you want fake news to be the gatekeeper of all news, telling us which ones are real, which stories are fake, and then flagging which ones they don't approve of?
And of course, the answer is no, because here's what I believe. I still believe Americans have a mind. I think Americans are smart. And I think Americans can determine if something is real or if it's fake. And what we don't need in America is anyone beginning to censor what we see when it comes to our news.
And I think most Americans would share your opinion of themselves, not even of other people. A Pew survey says 84% of Americans feel confident that they can detect fake news on their own, that they don't need help with that.
That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, I get fake news just like everyone else through various sources. And when I see it, I think, well, wait a minute, is this really true? So I take a moment to verify it on my own. Because if news is really true, there's more than one credible source that's going to report it. And I'm afraid sometimes we take it too quickly, and maybe we do act sometimes to pass news along that's not true. But when we do, we should say, hey, I was wrong, and we retract it. But I don't think we need people sitting there telling us what is news and what is not, because then it becomes someone's opinion sometimes rather than just the facts.
Right, and we'll get into that in just a second here. But I think you're exactly right. It almost seems to me like it's going to devolve into something similar to 1984, where someone else is sitting behind us saying, no, don't show them that. We don't agree with that. We don't think it's true, when it isn't actually objectively a true or false fact. It's just someone's opinion.
That's true. Because, see, if I said, for example, that a Hollywood actor was divorced, that is either true or it's not true, and you can begin to verify whether it is a fact. But if I said a Hollywood actor is a terrible actor, that's my opinion. But what if I'm the gatekeeper and I decide, well, I really want to help this person's career, so I don't want anyone saying anything bad about them. So now it becomes deciding fake news is really a person's opinion. So let's just allow people to decide for themselves. I still believe, I've said this for years, Liz, I just believe that there's not a problem in the world we can't solve. And as a pastor, you would expect me to say this, but it's true. I believe there's not a problem that Jesus' common sense and a little hard work can't solve. And
Right.
I think we've got a problem with fake news. I think we just need to trust the people to determine for themselves whether it's real or not, and they can determine. And remember, if someone's passing along fake news, their credibility becomes at issue when people find out, hey, they can't be trusted. So it's very important we pass along the truth. But at the same time, let's not try to snuff out those who are trying to determine or even passing along fake news, because then we learn how credible they are in other things they say.
Right, and I think that's exactly why only 6% of Americans trust the mainstream media, because they've ruined their own credibility by purporting things to be fact when it's just opinion. But going back to what you said about trusting people and hard work, isn't this kind of this thing that we all learned in grade school and high school, some people even in college, how to cite your sources when you're writing a paper, that you can't just write a paper and act like something's fact, state it as if it is true. You have to cite the source where you get it from. So if you read something on Facebook and it's not true, go and look it up. Or if you read something and you're wondering if it's true, like you said, if it's credible, it's going to be in more than one spot.
Well, I agree with you. I have to say, some of my friends who went to college with me, they wrote a lot of papers, and I guess they cited a few sources that were as fake as what they were putting in their paper. Honest. But the fact is, you're right. People can go and determine for themselves if it's true or if it's not true. And that is what I think is still what we need. In fact, I encourage people to do that about anything. Whenever we hear something, we ought to see if it's true or not. Don't just take it because it came from a certain source, because even the best of sources sometimes can make an error. But we still need to be open and free, and we don't need to empower people with the ability to say this is and this is not real.
Right, and I agree with you, Pastor. And like I said in the introduction, I don't trust Facebook to do this. I already see bias just on their own, just in my own news feed here. We've seen the examples, the videos of anti-Israel vitriol being tolerated while anti-Palestinian comments are allowed on Facebook here. But let's talk about these fact checkers, these 5 fact checkers that Facebook says they're going to employ. They call them third-party organizations. They're ABC News, the Associated Press, factcheck.org, PolitiFact, and Snopes. Pastor, in your opinion, are those objective third-party organizations?
Well, I don't think they are. Now, some of those have reported things that are true, and some of them have reported things that are not true. The danger to me is that we are empowering them to make that choice. So what if those five people got together, or those five organizations got together, and they decide, hey, we're not going to allow any pro-Israeli comments to be made? Then all of a sudden, everything that is supporting Israel, as I do, is going to become fake news. So we don't need to allow them to be empowered, and that's the struggle that I have with them.
Right, and I think I looked up some examples here when I was researching this to see if they were actually objective or not, and I found an example of something that PolitiFact did that I think exposes their bias, really. They took a statement by Casey Maddox that's 100% true, and they rated it as a half-true. This is what his statement was. He said, "Zero Planned Parenthood facilities are licensed to do mammograms. Planned Parenthood women don't need you." PolitiFact rated that as half true. I mean, it's 100% true. And then vice versa, when Democrat Martin O'Malley said 97% of the work that Planned Parenthood does is about mammograms and preventative health, which we know is not true when you look at their own annual report, they rated that half true as well. I mean, that's bias, clear as the day.
Well, I don't know how they do their math. If that's half truth and 97% of their work is not what Planned Parenthood does, I don't do the math. That's not good Alabama math to me. Because the fact is something is either true or it's not true. It's fact or it's not a fact. I'm not really sure if I've ever really met a half truth. Maybe we don't tell all of the truth, but a half truth is known as a lie. And so when we begin to say it's half truth, it's either right or it's wrong. May not tell everything we need to know. Maybe that's what we mean by half truths. But that's what concerns me as people begin, and their own biases come into what is true and what's not true. They want to advocate a cause, or they want to advocate for a candidate. That's where I have begun to have the struggles with a lot of these organizations.
Right, and I guess my issue, one of my last issues with this is that Facebook says they feel an obligation to combat fake news, the spread of fake news, and I don't understand. It seems to me they don't have any similar commitment to combat the spread of fake Islam or radical Islam recruitment propaganda on their site at all.
Right. I think it's been very clear at times where Facebook's leadership stands politically, and they allow their own bias sometimes to influence their decisions. I think anybody who watches Facebooks and what they have on there can clearly see that. So that's one of the issues that I totally agree with you. And I just should tell people, if you really want to know the facts, maybe you just need to watch Tipping Point with Liz Wheeler. Then you would get.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, sir. And on that note, that's a pretty good note to end it on. We are out of time, so I'll talk to you again soon. Merry Christmas.